Hey, hi, hello, friends. It's Hales. Today I will be interviewing the one and only Kate King, who wrote the incredible book, A Thorn in Every Heart. But today we will be talking about her very highly anticipated sequel to this book, which is A Storm in Every Heart, which comes out on September 1st. So stay tuned for a lot of fun and some silly ramblings about this world, the characters, and what's coming next. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. I'm really excited to chat about your new book.
I'm also excited to talk about my new book. This is the art copy. I have a real one too, but apparently not right here.
It's beautiful. I saw a video of the final copy and it is stunning.
Thank you. I'm really excited. The cover designer does a great job, and the person who does the edges does a great job. I can't take credit for any of these things, right? There are other people who make them look beautiful, and I'm appreciative to all of them.
Hey, but you have a hand in designing them, so you gotta take credit where
A
credit's due
small
too.
hand, a small hand, mostly at this point because I use, oh, it knocked over, because I've been using the same cover designer for a really long time and the same edge designer. I just say it's about mermaids and they go forth,
You guys are just like this now, just on the same
Yeah.
wavelength.
I'm a big
I
fan of
love
my
that.
cover designer. Forensics and flowers, if you're wondering, that's who does the covers.
So, A Storm in Every Heart is book 2 in the Enchanted Legacies series. Can you briefly tell us what this book is about?
So this is the standalone sequel to book one, which was A Thorn in Every Heart. And all of the books in this series are like fairy tale mashups. Not direct fairy tale mashups, it's more inspired by, but the first book was Beauty and the Beast meets Anastasia. This one is The Little Mermaid meets The Princess Bride. And so if you have seen either of those movies, you'll notice like direct parallels to the movie, but it's not a retelling of it's a vibes thing.
Yeah,
And so this one follows the best friend from the first book, actually both best friends. So the FMC and the MMC are the respective best friends from the last book, and they have a very long, sordid, complicated history. It was hinted to in the first book that they kind of knew each other, or they didn't like each other, or something was going on. And this really gets into that. It's dual timelines, so you see everything that happened 100 years ago, the last time they saw each other, because they are immortal, and now, and so it runs concurrently and then it eventually converges.
I love that kind of storytelling.
Yes, I have a fascination with dual timeline like that, and I have been trying to successfully pull it off for years. I've written a few books that were close, like, where there were flashbacks or something to that nature, and this book, I think, nailed it. Like I finally got that like dual timeline back and forth vibe that I've been going for.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you mentioned that this is an interconnected standalone series. How easy do you think it would be for a reader to jump into A Storm in Every Heart without having read A Thorn in Every Heart?
I think it would be pretty easy. It's designed to be pretty easy so that you can start anywhere because like I read a lot of interconnected standalone series and I certainly don't do them all in order. I'm typically the kind of person who will like read book one, but then I'm going to jump to book six. So the the only thing that I think you would be missing for book two is some of like the world building and like the overall like politics of the world, right? I mean, it's explained, like there's kind of a brief introduction at the beginning of the book that says this is what happened in the past or in the first book. And so if you're not the kind of person who feels like you're going to be missing out on like every detail, then you'll be fine. Like it's not hard to follow. I personally think you should read book one first, but it's not necessary.
No, that's fair. Yeah. I was gonna ask then, do you think this will remain true for future books? Do you think like as the series goes on, it'll be harder to jump in at any point? Or do you think it will
I think it'll be
remain?
easier, actually. Well, at least for the next one. The next one I'm doing is a holiday novella, and that one actually doesn't really stand alone. That's the only one that I feel like you can't exactly read on its own because it's more like an extended epilogue. It's the holiday episode of the show. But after that, the next standalone that I'm planning is more like independent to the other ones. So I actually think that that one you could read just on its own.
That's really interesting. I feel that you don't come across that very often where like it's a true interconnected standalone when it comes to romantasy.
I don't think that there are a lot of interconnected standalones when it comes to romantasy. I can't think of that many off the top of my head. I
Hmm.
can think of like there's like Katie Roberts, and that would be maybe not romantasy, but it's like urban fantasy.
I feel like I see a lot of like interconnected duologies rather than
Sure. Yeah.
standalones. So like
Yeah.
there'll be like connected.
Yes, connected duology. Yes, I have seen that, but I don't feel like this model is like the werewolf model, right? Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Or like
Yes.
the Ice Planet Barbarians model, where there's a whole bunch of these books and they like there is an overarching world. Like if you read Ice Planet Barbarians, I actually think you would be confused if you jumped in at book two, right? Like you kind of need
Yes.
book one, but after that, it doesn't matter. You could go kind of all over the place and read anybody's story, and that's sort of what's going on here. Like you really need that initial world building, in my opinion.
Hmm.
But after that, it truly does stand alone.
I think that's valid. Having read both of them, I think that's valid. I think you will
Thank you.
definitely get more out of it having read book one, but like not necessary, but you might be like, okay, who
It,
are these people?
you'll care more. You'll like it
Yes.
better. I don't think that anybody would be completely like lost in the
Right.
ether if they started with book two. I recommend reading book one first. And I think Ice Planet Barbarians is a good comparison for like how that would feel.
I actually think that's a very good comparison.
Thank you.
So, in A Thorn in Every Heart, you maintained a lighthearted feel because Alex is a modern day woman who is transported into a fantasy world. And of course, she's a girl after all of our hearts, and she makes a lot of pop culture references, which were
Yes.
absolutely hilarious. But obviously, this is different because Odessa and Kastian are from this world and they haven't been to the human world, so there's none of that in this one. How
Right.
did you find ways to keep A Storm in Every Heart as lighthearted and fun without crossing into a line of like silly or goofy?
So, well, first of all, Alex is in the book, right? Like I think a lot of times when you have interconnected standalones, like the first couple or whatever will like make like one small cameo appearance and then they'll be kind of gone. I think that Alex and Damon make like more than one small appearance. They become the best friends, right? So
Yeah.
they're around, like there are full scenes with them as if they're just like the best friend characters to the main characters. So Alex making a lot of pop culture references still works. And what I got to play with this time is like because it's Little Mermaid themed, we have Odessa not understanding human culture. So I leaned a lot into that. Like, like the dingle hopper or
Yes.
like she's like brushing her hair with the fork, or they're going through like the human items in her like cavern, her like hoarder cave and trying to figure out what they are. I leaned a little bit into that. So it's like, Alex is talking about Wi-Fi and Odessa does not understand what that
Yeah.
is. And so there's still some lightheartedness with it, like built in. It is this one's a little more romantasy focused. I think that if you started here, this is like more like a traditional romantasy adventure, but there are still some jokes that I think that people will appreciate if they liked the part of A Thorn in Every Heart where Alex was very modern. And if you didn't like that, there's less of it. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say because like this, you managed to find a perfect balance where like both books have dark themes or like events, but it doesn't feel like a dark book.
Thank you. No, that's a high compliment. I don't do dark books on purpose. I think I just am dark. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like I don't read a lot of dark romance anymore. I read some. I used to read a lot. I think maybe that bleeds in a little bit just because that's like something I'm familiar with. But I think also I like complex themes. I like to have dark things going on but not have the relationship be dark.
That's valid.
Yeah. So some of it's just natural. It comes out that way. It's like
Yeah.
whenever I try to ignore the politics of the world and just make it simple, I can't. It comes in anyway.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
And also I feel like those like sometimes some darkness kind of makes it feel more real and less
Thank you.
goofy just in general. Just
Yeah, I struggle with lightheartedness as a whole, which I think you would think is funny if you've read A Thorn in Every Heart, which is like that is not a serious book. It's a I think it's a great book, but it's not
not
like
biased at all.
it's not literature, like, and it's
Right.
not supposed to be. I have written series that were a lot more complex, for lack of a better word.
Hmm.
It was a lot more like questions left open-ended on purpose. Like it was supposed to be like you had to think about it. And I have found that people don't love that. Like it's it's nice when your reading is fun and you don't have to worry.
Sometimes like you're reading something just for the joy of it and you don't want to spend a
Yeah.
lot of time thinking or contemplating, well, okay, well we didn't get answers to this. I think this happened. Like there's a
Mhm.
reader set for both of these types of books.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit before about how this is a dual timeline story. It kind of feels a little bit like an unintentional second chance romance because of that.
Mm.
And was this kind of storytelling always planned for this couple?
No. I did always plan that this is what happened.
Right.
Like, I knew when I was writing Thorn that I knew that Castian was a prince. I actually I don't think I ever explicitly said it in book one, but like to me it was clear that like he
I thought it was
has.
clear.
Thank you. He had this dark history. I knew that Odessa knew him. That's mentioned a couple of times in Thorn in passing, and it's not explained because they're not the point in the first book. But I did know that this was their history. I toyed with if it should just be like a prologue, like one single scene to explain like, oh, and we met, 100 years ago and we fell in love real quick and then, um, and it was impossible. Like trying to write a prologue that long, it felt weird. Front
It's
loading
like
all
a
of that.
part one at that point.
Yeah, well, yeah, like front loading all of that information felt really uneven. Um, like for context, the past timeline scenes take up maybe 40% of the book. So
Hmm.
it would have been really odd to put it all at the beginning or to cut anything out. I didn't want to downplay the history by, just making it into one scene because there
Hmm.
was this progression. It's intentional that when they were in their previous timeline when they were younger, they fell in love in 3 days. Completely intentional because that's the plot of The Little Mermaid.
Right.
Like they only spend 3 days together before they get married, and so that
Which is
was
crazy.
it. No, it is crazy, but I was like, I liked the idea of that as a challenge. Like, can I
Hmm.
do a love story in 3 days? And then in the present timeline, it has been going on for a really long time. So now it's 100 years later. So it like the dichotomy of this like insta love versus this like long drawn out yearning was the point.
That makes sense. So, what challenges did you face while writing this dual timeline story?
It's some of it is trial and error. I have become a pretty direct plotter. I was not always like that. Like I've written a lot of books at this point, and some of them were more like, kind of by the seat of my pants than others. This one was very clearly plotted because I knew that going back and forth between the timelines, it had to feel like every single time was a cliffhanger, to drag you along. I know that there will be people who are like, oh, I don't like the past, or I was always trying to wait for the past, or whatever it is.
Hmm.
But overall, I wanted the consensus to be that both timelines were interesting, so you were always trying to get to both. I mean, that's kind of hard, right? Like to have that balance. Also, that the characters are really, really different in the past to the future. It's been a very long time. In the past, they are clearly like not children, but like almost children. They're like 16 and 19. They're both very naive. They're very like gung ho for the world. Like there's a lot of hope there that doesn't exist in the present timeline. In the interim period, the Castian has spent like decades and decades in like prison as like a political war prisoner, and that has really shaped his existence. His entire family has died. This sounds like it's spoilers, but it's really not. This is like on the back of the book.
Yeah.
Um, So, like, his entire family is murdered. He is put in prison for decades. They don't see each other for a really long time. And so, like, they have changed a lot as people. Her perhaps slightly less than him, but they have both gone through things. And so, trying to connect the version of them in the past to the version of them in the present and make it feel both different and like the same person is hard.
Young him is very like flirty and kind of more upfront with
Yeah.
his feelings and chattier, but it seems like, now in like the current timeline, he is much more reserved and a little more broody.
Yeah, he explicitly like, kind of says that towards the beginning. It's like, when he was younger, he was the crown prince of his country. He was pretty arrogant. He was very like the whole world was his oyster. He could not possibly imagine that somebody wasn't going to love him immediately because that was his entire experience. Also, though, in the past, he is very aware that he can't say anything he wants to say because he is the crown prince of this country. Like he can't
Hmm.
have any like real friends exactly because everybody
Right.
is like a political pawn. So there's sort of some duology there. When we get to the future, he explicitly says that it took him years to change, because he had to realize that like in prison he wasn't going to survive if he was like that. Like he had to stop talking. He had to like kind of put his head down. And so that has changed who he is just as a whole.
Hmm.
Um, and it doesn't, he's not submissive, but he has really learned to like, mince his words and not be so direct.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me.
I think so too.
He's a traumatized adult now.
Yeah, yeah. They're both, I mean, as I'm explaining this, I'm like, okay, it was kind of dark. But like,
You're like,
I
oh,
mean,
but still, it still manages to not feel dark. So
yeah, yeah.
but
This
like,
sounds
there's
like
some
a
very
really,
serious things, like his whole family was killed. But like,
but like, yeah, but in fairness, it's romantasy. Like people get killed all the time. It's
it's
just kind of
true.
one of those things.
I would
Um,
definitely feel darker if it was like a contemporary story
Yeah, yeah.
somehow.
Uh, yeah. I spoke on a panel about this, actually only a couple weeks ago, where people were talking about like I can't remember the exact question, but it was
Hmm.
something to the tune of like, how do you do darkness in romantasy? And I was like, well, it's so much easier, right? Because if like, if someone like touched your girlfriend and you ripped off their arm in a modern story, that would be really upsetting. But in romantasy, that's like almost expected. It's like he touched her, kill him. And so it's kind of the same thing with this. It's like, yes, like Caspian's entire family was murdered, and then he spent 90 years in a war camp. That would
Casual.
be really different in like a modern story than it is with like immortal Fae.
Yeah, that's fair. I also feel that romantasy lends itself to just being inherently darker. Just in
Hmm.
general, you just expect it to be, I don't know, not subscribe to modern ideals and societal norms. So, you kind of expect women to not be as like held as equal compared to men. Like you would
Yes,
be upset about that in a contemporary story, but in a
yes.
in a fantasy, you're like, that kind of makes sense. It's
I'm
not
I'm
okay, but like,
I'm thinking now, like, do I have any like inherent misogyny built into the world building? I want to say not, certainly not intentionally.
yeah.
There's definitely you're correct. In romantasy, there is often this sort of like medieval gender gap that comes out in a lot of stories. Maybe a little bit of that, but there are in this series there are female leaders in their own right, but all of the women are certainly not subservient in any way. They're all quite vocal. There is a lot is a strong word. There is some discussion about how different kingdoms do different things. So some practice male primogeniture, which is the most common form of monarchy in our world. That's when sons take precedent over
Hmm.
daughters, the line of succession. Some don't. Some are based on just the eldest child. Some are like by merit. So
Right.
there's four kingdoms and they all do it in different ways. And that comes up. It comes up that Castian is the crown prince because he's a boy, because his country practices male primogeniture. He has three older sisters, and all three of them would be a better ruler than he thinks he would be. And he doesn't understand why they can't do it instead. And it's just explained to him that this is how it is.
Right.
And that is somewhat of a plot point as well.
That makes sense. And I do feel that that does come up a bit. He regularly says, no,
Yeah.
I'm good. He's like,
Yeah.
I don't want that life.
Yeah. Castian is, I don't know if it explicitly says this in the book, but like in my notes on this, Serena, his oldest sister, is like several decades older than him because they're Fae. So
Right.
like she would have been an adult when he was born. And she's like less of a sister and more of like an
A
aunt
mother.
or
Yeah.
mother, not quite a mother, but like, like an elder female relative. And so he's like, there's no world in which I am a better suited king to my adult sister, right?
Right.
But he is the minority in that opinion. Everybody else is pleased that they have a boy.
Love that for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Changing gears a little bit here.
Sorry.
But A Storm in Every Heart is, we talked about this, a Little Mermaid meets Princess Bride reimagining. How did you decide upon this particular combination of beloved stories? And how did you decide what elements to include to give it that nostalgic feel?
Well, okay, so I have like a list, right? Of Disney movies that or like classic fairy tales that I'm interested in adapting, and then kind of a separate list of like things that inspired me as a child. So just
Sure.
like like things that give me nostalgia, things that I liked. And I like to try to like find ways to blend them. And so I don't know that this was like the most obvious pairing, you know.
Right.
Um, but it kind of came down to the pirates. Um, I had not seen The Princess Bride in a while. It was one of those ones that I thought of really fondly, but I couldn't actually remember like the exact plot of.
Right.
That is not true anymore. I have watched that movie so many times to try to like, to make sure that I could get all the story beats correctly. But I was surprised by how prevalent the pirates are in The Princess Bride because that was not the part that I remembered the most clearly. And
Yeah.
so that fit nicely into a mermaid concept, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
like the idea of sirens, luring pirates to their death. That was cool to me. A lot of people think it's based on the Pirates of the Caribbean. It isn't. I mean, I would agree that that is a similar concept,
Right.
but there's nothing intentionally Pirates of the Caribbean. Everything is from Little Mermaid or The Princess Bride.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. I was gonna say, did you take inspiration from any other fairy tales or fictional stories in
Well,
this book?
no,
But
people say that it feels like Pirates of the Caribbean. And I agree to an extent, but that wasn't something I was thinking about while I was writing it.
mhm.
It was something that came out because there are actually similar tropes in there.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. So let's talk about mermaids. In the classic Disney version, mermaids are beautiful women both inside and out of the water. In your series, they're not exactly like that. So, how did you decide on your interpretation of mermaids or sirens?
Well, I think that it all of the things that make like us people beautiful or like the Fae beautiful to people are things that are only accurate because we live outside of the water, right? Like if you
Yeah,
think about like what a sea creature looks like, I would not call that especially beautiful, right?
valid.
Um,
Those
and-
scary fish that live in the bottom of the ocean.
yeah. Yeah. And so it was more just like what is realistic, right? And like realistic is sort of a weird term when you're talking about fantasy books where it's like there's also goblins. But
Right.
it's I wanted it to make sense within the confines of the world. So they are beautiful when they come out of the water, and that's like it's like a legend, So like they tell the Fae children to avoid beaches during certain times of year because the sirens will come out of the water and they will get you. And they're not nice. They're more animalistic than they are like the Fae. It's explained a few times, like through the context of it being explained to the main character, that the sirens are capable of like higher learning the way that like a human would be, but they do not typically use it because within the confines of the ocean they operate as sort of a hive mind with like a
hmm
central alpha, and so they would have to be fully separated from each other to think in any pattern that is like a human, or like a fae. And so I really leaned into that. I wanted it to be more like monstrous, more of a like a mob.
hmm
Hive mind is really the only word that I can think of to describe what this is. But all of those things combined, like that's not a pretty creature, right? That's scary.
Right.
And there is like a pretty heavy Ursula reference in there, but there's also ones that are like they're not fishtails, they're eels. There's some that are sharks. There's some that are like more like seal-like. So it's an entire community that I could have delved into more,
Right. But like it didn't make sense for the story to do so.
No. There's so many things. This happens to me every time I write a book where it's like I mentioned something in passing and I'm like, I could have written an entire book about that. But that's not the point here. It's like
Yeah.
like the world is vast and there are many different pockets that I could have delved into, and hopefully I will, as time goes on and the series gets longer.
So when they're in the water, like what's the chest situation for them? Like are they like animals up
Oh,
to neck or are they like just
it depends, right? So do you mean like are her tits out?
yes, that's exactly what I'm asking. She just goes into the
Um,
water and she's like, I am now just free. Or did it?
Yeah, kind of. Like, I think it depends on the creature, right? So there some of them are described as having more of like an entire like fishy body, you know?
Sure.
But fish is the wrong term, right? So they're more like dolphins or seals or like
Mm-hmm.
something with like a
Sleek body.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, I don't even know what the word is for that. Like, I'm thinking like marine mammals, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like that. They don't like most of them don't have scales. They're more mammally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never really thought about like if they would have breasts, you know. I guess I assumed that Odessa would,
Right.
just because Odessa is the one who is the most mermaid-like. And there is a in context reason for that she's like a little less scary than the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just because she's the main character. It does make sense in the context of the world,
Yeah.
but I think that she does. Yes.
I love that for her.
Yeah.
So, in most of A Storm in Every Heart, it takes place outside of Vernalis? Vernalis?
Finale. Yeah.
Okay. Every time I say it out loud, I'm like, did I
Oh,
mispronounce this?
I can help you with this. Vernalis is like so it's the spring kingdom. Technically, like
Okay.
winter happens there, but it's the one with the flowers. It's vernal, like the word for spring.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's Vernalis. Thermia, which is the winter kingdom, is like thermos, like
Okay.
temperature.
Mm-hmm.
Hydrata is the
Like
like
water.
island, right, it's water. And Solacene is a desert, so it's sun,
Sun.
soul.
I see what you're doing. So,
There you
okay, so we leave Vernalis in this story,
go. Right.
and that's basically the only part of the world we got to see in the first book.
Mhm.
So, because of this change in scenery, we get to see new settings and new characters.
Yes.
So, can you talk about some of these new characters first and foremost?
Okay, so yes, there is a new cast introduced. Just it's this is season two, right? We're
Right.
we're we're introducing some new people. We're seeing who sticks. There is a new villain. There's actually two new villains. One who is a little more like morally gray and might make a reappearance, and one
Hmm.
who is like a full villain and also might make a reappearance. You never know, but like probably not in a sexy way.
Right.
Right.
So there's a hot villain and there's a scary villain.
Yeah, right, yes. And then there's like kind of like a morally other villain. There's a lot of villains.
I love a villain, so
Yeah.
continue.
Yes, so there is one character that a lot of people are kind of comparing to like a Captain Jack Sparrow. He's not supposed to be a Captain Jack Sparrow. I can't say who he's supposed to be like, actually.
Hmm.
That's like too much of
Fine.
a, but he's not
It's fine.
Captain Jack Sparrow. He is inspired by a different character. And people, so far, like the arc readers have really enjoyed him. It's, like when you make a villain and then suddenly they're accidentally too hot.
Yes.
Yes.
I know that obviously.
Well, I don't know. This is like a thing. Like when I was writing him originally, he was going to be a villain, and then I wrote like one scene with him, and I was like, oh,
It's
hmm,
like, wow, is it hot in here? Is it just me?
yeah. I think I texted you. I was like, all
Yeah.
right, I've made an error. Like this guy is like the best dialogue, you
You're
know?
like, oh no. Oh no,
Yeah.
are people gonna think that she's gonna end up with him? But I think you did a
Yeah.
good job of showing that he's not the love interest for this story.
Right. Yeah, like he's definitely not supposed to be he just flirts with everybody, right? But
Which
yeah,
I love.
yes, he's indiscriminate in his affection. But yeah, people are liking him. I'm glad that people like him, and I do anticipate that he will return.
I hope so, because
Yeah.
he is my favorite. But then there's the scary villain.
Yes. The scary villain is uh, I like the idea of these almost like one-dimensional, like villainous Grand Vizier characters from
Hmm.
like an old Disney movie. And so I
Like they're
was sort of,
twirling their mustache with glee at
yeah,
your misery type of thing.
yeah, like, oh, Your Majesty, let me help you walk off a cliff. So
Yes.
that's the idea with this guy. I wanted it to be very referential to this trope of like the bad advisor. He ended up getting a little more of a backstory because I just can't help myself, like but like so there is some method to his madness. But his entire motivation is he wants to be king, like that's the whole point. And it's power for the sake of power. And I think in some ways that's okay, right? Like you can have not everybody needs to have like a tragic backstory.
Yeah.
Sometimes the villain is the villain.
Yeah.
And I liked I like having the one of the villains who we're going to learn a lot more about and will get explained, and then one villain who's just bad.
I think that's totally fine. Sometimes there's just a bad egg. Were there any of the new locations that we see in this book, were any of these your favorite to write, or do you have a favorite that you got to write?
I have like a very clear picture of like what all of the different locations look like, and
Mm-hmm.
like the architecture is different in Hydrata to Vernalis. I think I'm partial to Storia. I like Storia a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's the village in Vernalis where the characters from book one end up living and like make their new kingdom. And that one I like just it's quaint. Nothing bad is happening in Storia. And I like that a lot.
It's giving like idealistic village.
Yeah, it's like a little utopia. And I'm sure I'll ruin that eventually, but it's the idea
Nothing good
is
lasts forever.
no, I know.
Another thing that comes up a lot in this series as a whole is the concept of a soul bond.
Hmm.
What is a soul bond and how is it different from fated mates?
Well, so it's a bit like Fated Mates,
Hmm.
just in practice, right? But I can never just like do the normal thing, right? Like everything has to be like a little more complicated.
I love it.
I like it in books when characters do not fully understand a concept and they won't understand a concept, right? Because it's kind of like, if you asked a person, like, please describe religion, like they could explain to you like what it is in practice, but like nobody truly knows, like there are secrets of the universe. I like it in my books when there are also secrets of the universe.
Hmm.
So a soul bond it's like a fated mate. In within the context of the world, nobody knows exactly how it works. So the majority of people believe that it is like it's not predestined, it's triggered by something. So that they have this like everyone knows that if you have like a traumatic experience with someone, that it's likely that you'll form a soul bond. It sounds like I'm saying that like trauma bonding is how you create fated mates. That's not what I'm saying.
I mean, sometimes there do
I
be
mean, yeah.
connections.
No, but that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there's debate within the world about like what starts it. So there are people who are of the opinion that it is a predetermined connection. There are people who think that not everybody has one. So, it's an overarching debate. What is certain is that once this bond forms, you're never going to be with anyone else. Like it's physically painful to leave your person. It's at that point it becomes like this fated mate thing
Hmm.
where it's like this is the one person for you. But the idea is that it could kind of be anyone. It's circumstantial.
Yeah. So rather than it being like a predetermined by fate, hence fated
Right,
mate, like you were always going to be with so and so, it can literally
right.
be anybody based on circumstances and experiences.
Maybe like we don't know, right? So it's like
Theoretically.
right. So it's like we're Castian and Odessa destined to be together from the time that they were born or before they were
Hmm.
born, or did they create this soul bond like later, like when they were kids and they had a traumatic experience? Did it happen later when they had more traumatic experiences? Like we don't actually really know, and that's
Yeah.
that's okay. That's the point.
I like that. I like that that's a unique take on it.
I understand why people would call it fated mates because that's just like an easier concept and like, it's like a shorthand for like what they mean. And in practice, it is that. So, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here.
Right.
I like the idea that like in like a fated mate scenario, sometimes it almost doesn't make sense when somebody has like more than one mate. It doesn't make sense when the, different species would mate,
Hmm.
maybe. Like, kind of depends on the world. This gives a lot more room for there to be options, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't exactly know.
That's fair. Another thing that you have your own take on in this series is the winged fae.
Hmm.
Romantasy lovers love a winged fae,
Yes.
but you have your own kind of unique take on this. So how did you decide on the rules surrounding the appearance of fae wings?
Well, the appearance, so they're angels. They're like based on angels. Because in the first book, since the main character is a human who has like fallen into the fantasy world, a lot of things are referential. So she spends a lot of time thinking like, how does this exist? And comes to the conclusion at one point that the idea of angels came from people seeing fae. So they have these like
Mm.
big feathered wings
Hmm.
that are not there. all the time. So basically the wings like appear magically, like either like during sex or when their lives are in danger. And that comes from my very uninformed opinion on like evolutionary bias, right? So they at some point they talk about how like there are fish who change color when they're threatened,
Hmm.
or like there are birds who like put their wings out, like big when they're threatened or to attract a mate. So the idea
Okay.
is everything is about fighting and fucking. And so that's where that comes from.
Period. The end.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love that they have the feathered wings. I don't know why. I just think a feathered wing just sounds so much better than a fleshy wing.
Yeah, I think I read like a story as a kid, and I'm trying to remember what it was called, but like it was some like middle grade series when I was really young, like maybe 11.
Hmm.
And there were like people with bird wings. I think it was like a James Patterson book, that like ended up really
That sounds
like,
right.
yeah, like inspiring my opinion of what wings on people should be.
This is so valid.
In my own stories, all wings are good wings. I like it when they're different colors. All of
Hmm.
the wings are like bird related, right? So like no one's ever gonna have a pink wing. The wings are all like colors that could appear on a bird.
I mean,
And it would make
technically, they could be a flamingo.
okay, yeah, but like fuck you. Fine, sure. I guess there could be a
You're like,
flamingo.
you're like, stop.
But like no, I spent time I looked up a lot of like birds of prey, right? So birds that are
Yeah,
like apex predators within their own ecosystem. And so it's like Damon is like a red-tailed hawk.
sure.
And
Okay.
yeah, so and then Castian is I can't remember the exact name of it. It's like a black bird with like green like an oil slick kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And the name is escaping me of that bird right now, but it's another like hawk type bird. And then we have Fox who has like like big white wings, like an owl almost.
Sure.
Very like classic angel. And
Also makes
then
sense if he's from
Thermia,
Thermia.
yeah.
I was like, it's Therm something.
And then Jet has raven wings. It doesn't say raven, but that's what it is. It's like an indigo blue black raven
Okay,
wing.
I love that.
Yeah. And also just on the flamingo thing, they only turn pink because they
They eat
eat.
shrimp.
Yeah, so they would be white.
You're like, I'm sticking with this. There's no pink wings.
I
They
mean,
just
I
eat a
don't
lot of
know.
shrimp, okay?
What if they did? Oh, see, now you're giving me new ideas.
I know, I'm like thinking like what other foods would like turn someone's wings a different color?
It's like that whole myth. I don't know if it's true. Like you eat a lot of carrots and you'll turn orange.
Yeah,
I mean,
which
it's
is
like
it's
I think
really weird.
we all watched that Magic School Bus episode when we were a kid, but I don't know if
100%.
that's true.
Or there was that one, what was that one book where like you turn like rainbow if you don't eat lima beans or if you do eat lima beans or something like
Oh,
that? You
oh,
know what I'm talking about, right?
yeah, I do. Deep cut. I have
I
no, but like, yeah.
I can't
Okay,
picture what it's called, but yeah, something like that where it's like you eat something, you turn a color.
well, that's a problem for a later date. I probably will not do that, but you never know. You
You
never
know
know.
what? Just giving you ideas for your shrimp eating characters.
I have more characters who are Fae who like would have wings. We just haven't seen them in the context of the series
Hmm.
yet, and they will get introduced eventually. So, all colors are valid.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I personally love Odessa and Castian's relationship.
Thank you.
She is so sassy and he just knows like what buttons to push on her and I love it. It's not really true hate to love at all.
No.
Because they don't really hate each other. They just are mean to each other. Um,
Yeah.
what was your favorite part of their relationship dynamic? And also like how was this challenging?
It was very challenging. I never like sit down ahead of time and think like this is how the relationship dynamic is going to be. Like I develop characters independently and then I see if I feel like they have on page chemistry.
Hmm.
Um, Odessa is a very strong-willed character, but she is also like she doesn't like to work. Like she cares a lot about what she looks like. She is very like effervescent around most people. She's like a people person, but she also has like a really quick temper. I think that that makes her more realistic, like just as like a human. I feel like we don't see enough characters who are like, actually, though, I love wearing pretty dresses and like, and I do want to look great. That has kind of gone by the wayside as like a character type in this particular genre. And
Hmm.
so that was who she was initially. And then it became kind of like, what kind of man works with that,
Yeah.
Um, and they sort of developed naturally. Castian's love language is like acts of service, right? So he's very happy to take care of her, and she is very happy to let him. It's a relationship built on just like, I don't know, they mesh nicely together. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. It
Yeah.
also seems like he's a bit of a control freak, and so this seems
Yes.
like that kind of works in tandem.
Right. Like he wants to control everything. He wants to do everything himself, and she kind of doesn't want to do anything. So it's great. It's like, he wants to be the one to like in a modern context, like he's driving, he's controlling the map, he's whatever, and she's like the passenger princess, and everybody's great with that.
May love like that find me one day. Did you have a favorite part about writing this dynamic?
Yeah. Okay. So the scene, it's like later on when they're building the boat.
Yes.
Yes. For the viewers at home, the context is
There's a boat building scene.
yeah, yeah. They are traveling down a river. They need to like they can't walk on land for plot reasons, so they have to go in the water. They need a boat. Castian spends a while building this boat, and Odessa is feeling guilty because she's not helping, but she's also like not going to offer to help because she's like, this is, this is not my problem. I can't deal with this. And everybody is great with that. And then at one
Yeah.
point, she starts to feel guilty about it, and she tries to offer to help, and he's like, don't worry about it. Like, just sit there. I got this. I want to do it. And I was like, that scene really encapsulates kind of who they are as a couple.
I love that scene. Because this is like a more romantasy based book than more than the first one, because the first one, like, this character doesn't really know what's happening and just kind of plopped into the magical world and she's just like, I'm just here.
Right.
And Odessa and Castian are more well versed in what's going on, like
Right.
politically and just in general. What challenges did you face while expanding the world? Or what did you always know was going to be important to include from the beginning?
It's an interesting question. Okay. So I would not say that I had a lot of challenges expanding the world. I almost had more challenges like keeping it contained because so I've always known that there are four kingdoms in Ellender. Ellender is the continent, and
Hmm.
then there are like four independent countries within that continent, and they all have varying forms of government. And so I always knew that like right off the bat, I'm making that kind of complicated, right? Like I could have had it be one kingdom. I could have
Hmm.
had each kingdom be like a type of government that everybody would understand. It could have all been, they could have been four kings or high lords or, whatever it is. And instead I decided to make it weird. So I knew from the beginning that like my global political ambitions, were going to make everything harder. Like,
A
I
good
can't
time.
I no, I can't help it. Like I really enjoy that aspect of writing. I think if there's anything that I do well, and like there's a lot of things I don't do great, but my two best things I think are have really good supporting casts, like big casts of side characters, and I'm pretty good at political world building.
I
So
agree.
thank you. I knew that that was going to be hard to contain and to explain in a way that makes sense because a lot of politics are messy and sometimes things contradict each other and it just gets all blue. And so I wanted to make sure that I kept it as simplistic as possible so that readers wouldn't get like bogged down in the minutia. One of the criticisms that I heard of book one, not I don't like really read reviews, but like like some find me anyway, like like
Hmm.
I get
You
tagged or whatever.
sometimes get tagged in some negative
Yeah,
reviews,
yeah.
which is, shame on
Which
them,
is
but
no, like I don't like being tagged in them, but like I don't mind that they exist, right?
right.
But one of the criticisms that I have heard was that there was not enough like external world building in book one, and I almost view that as a compliment because it intentional, right? Like book one was supposed to introduce you to the world in a way that was very bite-sized and very like um, it, it was supposed to be simple. You
Right.
were not supposed to have to think that hard about the overall political climate, but I'm like frog in the watering all of you, right? Because I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so get in here in this like nice, easy thing. And then the next thing you know, it's like everything has gone like loose and it's all crazy and there's all sorts of different things. And we're talking about trade routes and like in lines of succession, and I'll get you eventually.
Like,
So
I
I
will force you to have this world building at some
right.
point.
Right. And like the magic system in the beginning and the first book is pretty loose. It still ties into what it would later become because I always knew, but like it wasn't relevant to explain the entire magic system in book one. It does become relevant in book two, so there's a lot more about it there. So it's like I'm building on the concept with each book. Does that
Yeah.
answer the question? I lost track of the
Yeah,
question.
no, that makes sense to me because like in
Yeah.
book one, Alex doesn't really care. I mean, she cares, but like she's just
Hmm.
there to accomplish a specific goal, and
Hmm.
those external details aren't relevant to that goal. So why would
Right.
they be explained to her?
Alex is the reader conduit, right? Odessa is not.
Hmm.
So, like, Alex is what I think it would be somewhat realistic like, if a modern human woman fell into one of these worlds and was asked to have this adventure, what things would be relevant to her? What things would she care about? She is very concerned about being eaten by a wolf. She's not super concerned about like the political relationship between the Desert Kingdom and the Winter Kingdom that has been going on for 100 years. Like,
I mean,
she's not
she's
thinking
not.
about that.
Yeah, well, she's not. Why would she? It's not
Right.
only not relevant to her situation, but also like you can't ask questions if you don't know that they if these questions exist or these things issues
Exactly.
exist.
Yeah, like I challenge like most people to explain to me the politics of a country that they don't live in, like maybe
Hmm.
like broadly you could, but like there are things that are just like a wider lens than you necessarily need for your day-to-day life. And that's Alex. Whereas Castian is the usurped, exiled crown prince of a different country. Like he
Yeah,
is much more aware of what is going on in the world. Odessa is immortal. She
yeah,
has lived in, at this point, two different courts. She was born in one country and sent to another. She's also quite aware of not only like the political system, but also like the magic system. She's very aware of how that works. Like it's like, ask someone to explain an iPhone to someone who has never seen an iPhone versus like if you're just using it. Like I don't often think about the operating system.
yeah. That's so valid. I really like that. I like that. Like almost book one is almost like an introduction to
Yeah.
romantasy. Like it's not super serious. It's not super in depth. And like if you want to delve deeper, you can keep reading.
Yes, actually, I do explain it that way. Like when if I do signing events and I have books for
Hmm.
sale, I will explain it as like A Thorn in Every Heart is like is Romantasy 101. Like if are starting to read the genre, that's a good one to start with. Whereas like some of my other books, like Wild Fae, that's like Romantasy 3.0. Like I would not start there.
Yeah,
If you
that
don't know
is
what
so fair.
changeling is, don't read Wild Fae because it's not going to like hold your hand through like fantasy concepts. But A
Hmm.
Thorn in Every Heart really does. It's like it's explaining everything from the ground up.
That makes perfect sense, and I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
I only have a couple more questions for you. What was your favorite part about writing A Storm in Every Heart? This could be scenes, characters, moments, quotes, anything else.
I like the found family aspect. I like that because we have already introduced a lot of the characters, like the found family is already there.
Hmm.
And so we can just build more on their relationships with each other. I liked the flashbacks a lot. Like I know flashbacks are a controversial concept, right?
Yeah.
But one of my very favorite scenes is just chapter one as a whole, which is like Odessa as a young child meeting Damon, who is the protagonist of book one.
Hmm.
And they're cousins, but they are raised like brother and sister from the time that they meet, and it's just their first meeting. And I thought that that one was really interesting. I really enjoyed writing that scene. I like giving things context and delving deeper into everybody's lives.
Yeah, and I think that
Spice is
that's
good too, but like I liked that one.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The my favorite part about that scene is that it makes sense because then like in A Thorn in Every Heart, they needle each other. They're kind of mean to each other, but that's how
Yeah.
siblings are.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense. And without context, you're like, that's kind of rude. But when you find out that they were like raised from
Mhm.
childhood on, like, you know, things I say to my sister I wouldn't say to anyone else. Because,
Right.
like, it
Yeah.
would be, like, really rude.
Yeah, like I wouldn't necessarily say that Odessa and Damon are mean to each other. I think that they
Hmm.
care a lot about each other. I think that, like, I mean, one of the initial plot points of this entire book is that aside from Alex, who is his soul bond, Odessa is the most important person to Damon, and
Yeah.
that's why she gets like kidnapped. So again,
Hmm.
we're going from the back of the book here, but Damon is the king of this country, and the other country is aware that he would probably go to war if they stole his sister. And so they steal his sister, and there's like a whole thing where it's like, why didn't they steal Alex, his soul bond? And they're like, because they think that he would like kill them all. Whereas they think that with Odessa, he might listen for a second before he killed them all.
And I think that's valid. That seems like
Yeah,
a very on the nose decision
right.
on their part.
Yes, I mean, interesting concept, but like overall, it's like, like Odessa is like the second most important person in Damon's life, only to his fated romance.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
But
sense.
yeah, but they are rude to each other.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, which
Mhm.
is valid. What is coming next? Other than this book, which comes out on the 1st.
Right. Well, next we have a holiday novella.
Hmm.
So that one it's just Christmas in Ellender. It follows Damon and Alex. Cassian and Odessa are in it, but POV wise, it's Damon and Alex. And that one, it covers both Christmas and their wedding. So it's
Perfect.
it's not really intended as a standalone novel. It's like it's a treat for the people who already love Damon and Alex and wanted more. And because I hear that a lot. People will be like, "Oh, I wanted to know what happened next." And I'm like, "Okay, well, so this is next."
Hmm.
Um, and after that, there's going to be the next full-length novel is going to follow a different one of the characters. So there's going to be another standalone couple.
I'm very excited to read both of these things.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited about it. The book comes out on September 1st. And I think that we've spent a lot of time here talking about how like you shouldn't read it if you haven't read book one. And I'm like, maybe I should have changed that a little bit. But I do think you could read it, but I probably would read book one first.
Yeah, no, that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense that, like, it can stand on its own, but it's best
It's the Ice
enjoyed.
Planet Barbarians thing. It's like
You have to read book one at least.
yes, if you read book one and you know how, it's been a while since I read that series, but like, if you
Hmm.
know how the girls got abducted and how they ended up there, and you know what a cooey,
Kui.
you have to know what a cooey is. But after that, go wild, right? Like you don't
Yeah,
have to read them in order, but you
yeah.
do kind of need the intro.
I think that's a very
Yeah,
spot on description.
thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a great time chatting with you. Thanks so much for joining Kate and I today. Don't forget to pick up your copy of A Storm in Every Heart, which will be out on September 1st. Also, don't forget to join Kate and I live on Instagram on release day. We will be joined by Elizabeth and Helen, who wrote the Beast of the Briar series. If all goes well, I will also have it on my channel. Thanks so much for watching. Love you all. See you next time.